Court is in session on If You Don't Like That, and we're brought to you by Bennett's West Side Grill with a special surprise here. The one, the only, the man of the channel, Mr. Grant Napier. Welcome into the King's Court.
Hey, man, how about that? I finally get on your show. How about that? Well, it's great to be on the King's Court. It is freaking awesome.
It's surreal, Grant. I mean, we've come so far. It's amazing to be on your platform, have this opportunity, have my mentor sitting right here next to me on this show. So
don't embarrass me.
Very, very cool. Grant, I got to ask you a question. Can you smell it? Football season is in the air.
48 hours from now, I'll be in Tuscaloosa getting ready to go to the Alabama game. So I'm pumped up. I can't wait to get there and take my boys to the Alabama game. And so, yeah, I'm going to be watching football all weekend. And then, of course, a week from tonight, NFL season. Did you do your pro football picks yet? You go to the Pick'em League? Did you pick your games or not yet?
It's way too soon to pick your games.
I know.
Grant.
I was just asking.
Things could happen. The line could change. The smart money comes in closer to the game. But are you all signed up and ready to go on the Pick'em League?
Yeah, I had a good year last year, and I'm thinking that I'm going to even be better this year, my man. So, you may want to kind of steal my picks. Okay. I'm just trying to help you out here a little bit.
You, Flynnbot, and Peter, you guys were in the 50s and the 60s percentiles. And I'm like, what's going on? Get out of this stuff and get to Vegas. Get out of here. So anyways, if you want to join the Fantasy Football League, by the way, make sure you get signed up. You can join us on Yahoo. It's our second year in a row, or third year, excuse me, that we are doing the league. Here's the information. There is the league ID and also the password, completely free to join. We've got some nice prizes that have been donated. So a couple of gift cards coming your way. So get signed up. It is a lot of fun. We've got a lot of people in there already. We are looking very much to it. So, Grant, let's talk right away. I know we are so exhausted about talking about this, but Brandon Aiyuk has officially been cleared by 49ers medical staff. He has now missed his second unexcused practice in a row. Grant, how are you feeling at this point?
I'll tell you, I'd be very concerned if I'm a 49ers fan. No Trent Williams, no Brandon Aiyuk. You had McCaffrey with the calf strain. This is not the way you want to go into a season if you're Kyle Shanahan. This Brandon Aiyuk situation, though, it seems like we've been hanging on the edge of a cliff for a couple of weeks. And at some point, Ryan, there's got to be a solution to this, or there has to be an end result. Either he's moved or, and I guess they had a trade all worked out with Cleveland. He doesn't want to go to Cleveland.
That's right.
I don't have a good feeling about the Niners right now. I just don't.
Yeah, either do I, Grant. The offseason has not been kind to them. Our friend Larry Krueger has covered the Niners very closely this offseason. He's been at training camp. He was there yesterday. John Lynch spoke to the media. So did Kyle Shanahan. Here was one of the takeaways that Larry had.
To talk to Lynch, who looks really tired, and Shanahan does as well. Both these guys are totally worn out by all these holdouts and the short off season and losing the Super Bowl. And they look like it's mid-season and it's the beginning of the season.
This is the time you're supposed to be fresh, Grant.
I agree with Larry.
The time that you're supposed to be fired up. If you're the Niners, this is the year to get it done, not how you want to be rolling in.
He's spot on. I got to tell you, I think Larry Krueger's right on there. I have the same impression. It's why I'm not picking them to win the NFC West this year. I think they're going to have a setback. Now, I understand they still have tremendous personnel, but you pointed this out repeatedly. When you don't have Trent Williams on the field, you're not the same team.
No, you're absolutely not. He is the anchor of that offensive line.
Yep.
You've got a new guard. Dominic Pooney has looked great in the preseason, Grant, but he is still a rookie, yet to experience the week out of the NFL, and having Trent Williams right next to you makes things a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, and you got a Jets team that comes in a week from Monday, and we don't know about Aaron Rodgers, but what we do know is the Jets defense is solid, and you got Robert Saleh, who's coming back, and certainly he'll know how to attack this 49ers offense, and he has the personnel to do so. And if you don't have Trent Williams on the field, or even if you have Trent Williams on the field, but yet he's not able to go every snap or he's not at 100%, that's a big detriment for the 49ers. That's a big problem.
Absolutely. It takes these guys a little bit of time to get ready. You know, the Jets are going to come in hot. Aaron Rodgers, something to prove. He's been dealing with the media all off season. Now, we talk about Brandon Ayuk. We talk about Trent Williams. I also found this interesting yesterday, Grant. John Lynch was asked about both situations. And let me see if you can notice the difference in what he said.
The Trent situation?
No, there's no updates there. I mean, there's good communication. We're constantly working, throwing out ideas to try to have a breakthrough, and it just hasn't happened yet.
Is there good communication between you and Brandon?
Yeah, there's communication, and it's been ongoing. You know, with Brandon, with his representative, and on that one as well. We just haven't been able to break through.
Good communication versus communication. Thoughts?
Tells you all you need to know. And here's the other thing you need to know. He's not on the practice field. And guess what? It's Thursday, and your first game is in 10 days. So this is now becoming a critical point to either have Brandon Ayuk on the field or not have him on the field. And the Niners have to plan accordingly. I'm sure they are planning accordingly. But the point is, I think the rest of the team would love to know what the hell's going on too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been too big of a distraction. Get into the chat. Bane, welcome in today. We got Grant in the house. What is up, BJ? Happy to have you here. Grant, the community here, you have to ignore some of the messages because they're just talking between themselves. They built their friendships.
I like
Love
that.
to see it. Yeah.
It's all good, man.
Absolutely awesome to see up in here. Now, you did your NFC preview. I had a great time listening to that. I want to start with the NFC West. A shocker right off the top. We've talked about the Niners, and you don't have the Niners at the top of the division.
They're the Philadelphia Eagles of last year, in my opinion. That's how I'm looking at them. I think they're going to have a similar fate of the Eagles last year. Now, you got to remember, the Eagles started off very well, and then they absolutely fell apart in the second half of the season, and they limped into the playoffs, and they were an absolute non-factor. And I'm looking at the signs for the 49ers at this juncture, and I just don't have a good feeling about them. I just don't.
So you think in reverse Eagles, do you think they limp into the season? Do you think this carries into the first games, or do you think it's a throughout the season type of thing?
The season is so long, and there are, like, for instance, if you look at San Francisco last year, they were rolling, they looked great, and then they lost 3 games in a row beginning at Cleveland.
That's right.
And then they got back on the horse, and they were playing great until the Baltimore game. But guess what? Guess who they didn't have on the field during the 3-game losing streak? They didn't have Deebo Samuel on the field.
That's
right. They had Trent Williams on and off the field. That was a big factor. You know, you remember the rookie kicker missed a field goal that would have won it in Cleveland, and then they lost. Then they lost the following week. I think the following week was at Minnesota. They lost 3 games in a row. They came home and got their butts kicked by Cincinnati. If you remember, the Bengals came into Levi Stadium and smoked them. And then the Niners got Deebo Samuel back. They found themselves, and they got on a roll until the Baltimore game. But I also go back and I look at the 2 playoff games, and I talked about this on my podcast. You know, Green Bay went toe-to-toe with San Francisco, not having the luxury of a bye week, having to play the week before at Dallas. Niners were a week off, and Green Bay came within an eyelash of winning that game. And then the following Sunday, the Detroit Lions come into town. Again, they didn't have a week off. They had played the week before, and they had played the week before that. They were up 24-7. And their coach made a very, very peculiar call. Instead of kicking a field goal to keep the momentum, he went for it on fourth and a couple, didn't make it. And that changed the entire complexion of that game around. Detroit was the better football team that day, but they didn't win.
No, they did not. And it'll be interesting to see how coaches play these things. We've seen so much leaning towards the analytics, but you feel like once you get to the playoffs, you got to coach a little bit different. I know you want to empower your players, but if Dan Campbell goes for that field goal, Grant, that's a different game. That stops the momentum.
Absolutely. And you also, in all likelihood, you're giving San Francisco the ball at the 25 instead of with a good field position, and it changes everything. Now, you and I don't have a crystal ball, or we can't go, we don't have 20/20 hindsight. Maybe the kicker misses. I mean, there's, it was going to be a 46-yarder. It's not like it's automatic. So, you maybe the snap is bobbled, whatever. I mean, but it changed the momentum. But regardless of what happened in that game, the Niners were beatable in both the Packers game and the Lions game at home. And the biggest game of the season before that was Baltimore, and Baltimore smoked them. Now you don't have Brandon Ayuk, and you don't have Trent Williams. And again, I don't know if they're going to be on the field or not a week from Monday, but at this juncture, it doesn't look good in terms of getting them ready to play. And how many days of practice would they need to be effective? There are all of these variables that go into it. I just don't like where the Niners are at right now, plain and simple. And, by the way, what about Christian McCaffrey?
It's a great point. Mark put in the chat that he worries that CMC is going to get overused. Well, right now, CMC's got a strained calf. That is not soft tissue injuries earlier in the season, Grant. Not a great thing.
Not a great thing. And you just have to wonder if McCaffrey is going to be 100% a week from Monday or not. We don't know. We won't know really what's going on with the 49ers injury report until next week.
That is exactly right. And thank goodness the NFL does more accurate injury reports as opposed to the NBA at times. Speaking of Ayuk really quick, I want to break it down because this is where, to me, we're going to see the Niners position. He can be fined now. He can be fined $40,000 per day of unexcused practices. If he gets into game weeks and the games, it gets over $786,000. The Niners have kind of let him slide, in my opinion, with this phantom back injury. So at some point, one side's going to have to take a stand here and make things clear. It just can't keep pushing forward the way it is.
So is Brandon Ayuk going to forfeit game checks beginning a week from Monday? I would say the answer to that is no.
You're making almost $15 million a year. That's still damn good money to play football, Nabes.
Yeah. So the question is, if he comes in and plays, and in order to do that, he'd have to be on the practice field next Thursday, because the schedule's different on a Monday. You play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday, walk through Sunday, game on Monday. He'd have to be on the field beginning on Thursday in order for him to play.
That still is such a short period with Brock Purdy. You can do all that. We talked about this on earlier shows. You can do all the preseason work that you want on your own. You can go throw with your buddies. Can't simulate your reps in the NFL. You can't simulate what you're learning in the film room, looking at those in practice. It's going to be a tough road for them.
Look at Nick Bosa last year.
Exactly
he wasn't
right.
The same player. He came in 3 days before the first game, and he was not effective at all in the Pittsburgh game.
It's a great point. There was even talk that he should not even be playing in that game. Give him a week to get going. We'd love to hear from you guys. Get with us in the chat. Also, you can call the show. In fact, let's bring Jay into the NFL conversation.
How are you fellas doing? It's been a while.
Jay, how are you?
I'm doing great. Rhino, how are you doing? How you feeling this Thursday?
Dude, football is back, my friend. I am so happy.
That's the spirit right there. Hey, Grant, are you in California?
I am in California. Yes, sir.
Hallelujah. Well, that's
where are you at? You in California?
Today. Say again?
You in Cali?
Of course. I'm in Sacramento.
I'm in California. Absolutely. I'm back.
He's back. Oh, Lord. Everybody.
Not for long, though. Not for long. I leave for Nashville tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's so sad.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll be back throughout the year, right?
Yeah. Yep. A couple times. Yeah.
You're going to have to go to some A's games. What's up, Rhino?
Yeah. If I'm in town, I would. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay, we feel really bad for Napes. He's heading to Tennessee, Nashville, and then a college football game at Alabama.
I know.
Not bad living, you poor guy.
I have good friends. I got free tickets for the Alabama game for me and my two boys, so that helps a lot with the cost. And yeah, it's and my brother lives 2 hours from Nashville, so we're going to his house on Monday for a Labor Day barbecue. So
Oh, that's nice.
I'm really happy. I get to see my son, and I get to see my brother,
And some
and it's all
football.
good. Yeah,
I've seen Alabama Roll Tide tailgating, and they
Yeah.
get down with the get down. Like I said,
Yep.
my mom went to Penn State. I actually went to one of their whiteout homecoming games.
Oh, well, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's down on the East Coast. Those big powerhouse schools.
boy.
It's an NFL game. It really is.
Uh-huh.
Hundreds of thousands. Well, not hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands, but 100,000 people.
Yeah,
Oh,
So-
easy. Yeah.
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 You know how I feel about Ayuk in this situation.
how do you feel?
Well, we've talked. I'm for the players. I say, you gotta
Yep.
get your money, and 15 million, to Rhino's point, that's a lot of money to us. I mean, well,
He is under contract. You understand that, right?
yeah, he is
Okay.
for the 15 million, but we're playing a very high contact sport, and 15 million
understand.
for this year sounds great, but what about for the next? Because
Well,
he could end his career this year.
he
God
he
forbid.
could. He
Well,
could, but I mean, that's what a contract is for, and he signed it, and he's in a position
Yeah.
that he didn't want to be in. And right now, you tell me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't look like he's going to get what he wants.
It doesn't. I mean, everybody thought he was going to get traded a week or two ago, and that stopped there. So, and that's why, another thing, we always talk about the contracts with the NFL and the NBA. I mean, you see Wembanyama, I think he's eligible after this year for a rookie extension, and he's only been in the league for 2 years at that point.
No, he can't get a rookie extension until after his third year.
Okay, until after his third.
Yes.
Well, they're allowed to, obviously, when you have the draft rights of a player, you can exceed limits in the NBA,
Yeah, because your contract is slotted now in the draft. You know what the money is going to be. It's slotted between.
Yeah, but they're not obligated to fill out that slot either. They can keep it where it's at, right? If I'm not mistaken.
No, when you get drafted, your salary is already determined with a minimum and a maximum threshold, and it's a fairly narrow, range.
Right.
Whereas in the past, all of that would be negotiated, and then your rookie contract can be added on after the third year, or you can pick up an option, and the fourth year is already guaranteed. But at the end of the fourth year, that player becomes a restricted free agent, which means that you could then match any offer that comes in for that player.
Right. That's what happened with Tyrese Maxey, I believe, this offseason.
A lot of players. That happens with a lot of players.
Yeah. Well,
like, for instance, Keegan Murray at the end of this year is going to be eligible for a big contract.
Here's the thing, really quick, going back to Ayuk, that we're forgetting. He was able to negotiate with other teams. Reportedly, there is a number right around what he wants with another team. Pittsburgh doesn't want to go there for whatever reason. So,
and Cleveland, he doesn't want to go to.
Cleveland, great point as well. You mentioned
I don't
that
blame
earlier.
him. Who's the QB out there? Watson.
Hey, listen, I wouldn't want to go to Cleveland, regardless if Johnny Unitas was reincarnated. I wouldn't want to go to Cleveland.
Not even with that defense? Come on.
I would not want to play in Cleveland. Pittsburgh, it's a difficult situation because you got two QBs. So it's kind of like they're going to both have to get a feel for you, out there. And that's going to be a tough transition, I think.
Yep.
I just don't think. I think Brandon Ayuk, and no disrespect, and usually that means you're going to disrespect somebody, but I think he's getting a little too big for his bridges and what he's asking for. He's seeing himself, in my opinion, in the CeeDee Lamb category, in the Jamar Chase category, in the Tyreek Hill category. And I personally do not see Brandon Ayuk. In fact, I see it the opposite. If he goes to an offense where he is the strict number one, like a CeeDee Lamb, I don't think you're getting that type of player that those other teams are playing for.
And here's something else, Jay, before you respond. If he doesn't play a week from Monday against the Jets and the Niners win and look good doing so, boy, that's going to really hurt his any leverage that he thinks he has is going to be way, way down.
That's very much true. Very much true. I mean, yeah, that's not going to look very good. I think Rhino, it's a little bit unfair to say that. I'm not saying he's Tyreek Hill or freaking Justin Jefferson. He hasn't had an opportunity to be a number one. So I get why some teams would be hesitant.
Then go to a team that you can have an opportunity to get a number one and stop rejecting the trades. If you want to be a number one, the Niners gave you an opportunity to go to teams where you could be a number one, and you said no. So, at some point, what do you want?
That's true.
I mean, there's a lot of reports that the Niners were firm, very firm, but then they've kept moving, and guess what happens? The goalpost moves on Ayuk's end.
Yeah, I heard they did end up giving him some sort of offer, right? The Niners ended up offering him like $28 million or something like that, and he didn't sign that extension, or what? Is that true, or is there any more information on that, or what's going on?
Until this all gets resolved, we're not going to know what's true and what's not. I mean, we might not ever know, depending on if anybody talks about it. But clearly, there is a disconnect now, a very clear disconnect between the Niners and Ayuk.
Yep.
Speaking of college football,
this is, by the way, not atypical when you get to the 11th hour in negotiations. A lot of times it's two battering rams and a lot of things are said. And then all of a sudden, at the 12th hour, you work out a deal. And then everyone puts their arms around each other and talks about how much they love one another and how they've always wanted to be there. And then the fans don't care. That's how this thing works.
Grant, it sounds like you've been through that.
Well, I've been through that as a sports fan with my teams that I root for. Mm-hmm. And it's not uncommon for a lot of hostility to lead up to a contract. I mean, listen, Jerry Jones and CeeDee Lamb were going at it both on social media and through the press. And then all of a sudden, the next day, CeeDee Lamb's got, a contract that makes him the second highest paid player in NFL history, not, outside of the quarterback. So, they weren't exactly, lovey-dovey. There were some bad things being said. There were some things being reported. And then all of a sudden, a deal's done and everyone's happy.
Yeah, I remember that happened with the James Harden and Daryl Morey. When he went to the Clippers. Mm-hmm. Daryl Morey is a liar. That was right. James, do your thing then. Speak your mind. But speaking of college football, I got to wait for Corn Dog to join another show or whatever. But that Florida State, I remember he kept saying they're going to be tough. I don't know. I think they're going to be good. And then the upset happened. So now his whole what do you call it? Parlay or whatever you want to call it. That's what happens. That's why Grant said no more parlays for me. So
yeah.
You're on parlay probation. So really quick, since we're talking college football, Colorado, North Dakota State tonight.
I was just going to bring up Colorado too right now.
I'm calling the upset. North Dakota State is a damn good football team. I think North Dakota State goes in and beats Colorado tonight, in my opinion.
I hope so.
Gentlemen,
Sanders loses every game this year.
They play today, Colorado?
Yes. Tonight.
Okay, Grant, I was going to ask you about this because I didn't get opportunity to join when you did. Did you just say, I hope Colorado loses every game?
Yeah, every game. Every game. I hope they lose every game.
What's pricking you in the behind with a cactus?
I'm tired of Deion Sanders. I'm tired of his act. I'm tired of him and him calling out the media and saying that he's taking receipts. And now they're banning a reporter from the Denver Post. They're not going to answer any questions for him, nor the players. It's like, what the hell's Deion Sanders done? They went 1-8 in the conference last year. They won 4 games. They didn't beat anybody. They won at Texas A&M, but A&M was terrible last year. It was a down year. They needed overtime to beat Colorado State after trailing most of the game. Again, they went 4-8 and they went 1-8 in the conference. And now all of a sudden, Deion Sanders is going to start calling out the media and taking receipts. And I'm tired of his act already. I'm just tired of it. I hope they get their ass kicked. I really do. I'm hoping that they get their ass kicked every single game. And I also hope teams run up the score on him. I hope they rub his nose in it.
I don't think that's going to happen. And Grant, I love that we have opposing views. I want him to do good because I know from the football field, what has he done on the football field as a coach? He hasn't done much last season. I'm on the same page with you as that. But I like to look at what he's doing off the field and the greater good of.
What's he doing off the field?
Yeah.
What's he doing off the field?
So I believe last week there was a video posted. He actually partnered with a local bank in Colorado for players on his team that are having children or their ladies just gave birth to children. And they opened a 529 account, I believe it was, and deposited like $2,000 into each one of his players' accounts.
And what about all the players that left the program after last year and badmouthed him and all the
that happens? That's going to happen at every single program.
But I'm just saying, so if you're going to talk about
the McDonald's, Grant,
the other stuff too.
Jay, 53 players left the program.
That happens at McDonald's. If you have a new manager, you start to see people go. That's everywhere. That's business.
Listen, I know Deion Sanders does some good things for the kids, but at Jackson State, he had the same problem, the same issue, and there were a lot of things that were never discussed from the media that
Fair
was
enough.
going on
Fair
there. And so here's the deal. I don't have anything against Deion Sanders. I wasn't anti-Deion when he was primetime playing in the NFL or for the Braves. I didn't have a problem with him. He was a hell of an athlete, one of the best defensive backs to ever play. But as a coach, he rubs me the wrong way. I think his press conferences are a horrible look for his football program and the university. And personally, I think the Denver media should all boycott Colorado football. I think that everyone in the Denver media should not cover Colorado football this year. That's what I think should happen.
Well, I think that if you're gonna hold Deion to that standard, then you got to hold the University of Colorado to that standard as well. They're the ones that put language in his contract saying that media members could be blocked. They're looking at the money rather than the success on the field.
Of course they are, but that's wrong.
Fair enough. And to your point, I see the media and what the media, allows us to see. And he really blew up when he transferred over to Colorado or whatever. So I didn't see what was going on at Jackson State. So I take your word for that, Grant. That's fair enough. And
I think the media is very similar to what's going on in our presidential race right now. It's extremely well. I'm not voting, so I'm being very transparent.
I'm not voting either. I'm not.
So I can talk like this because I'm not voting. But my point is, the media is very slanted. Okay, we know that. You know that.
Oh yeah,
Brian
100%.
The media is unbelievably slanted pro Deion Sanders. What happened last year, I thought, was an embarrassment for the sports media of the country. The slobbering. I talked about Mark Jones during the Colorado State game. It was so bad I had to turn the volume off. I couldn't do it anymore. His slobbering over Deion Sanders was an embarrassment. And
they call it glazing nowadays, Grant.
Huh?
They call it glazing now.
Oh, glazing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, glazing. I'm too old. I call it slobbering.
I love it, though. I love it, Grant. I love it.
It was embarrassing, and that was a weekly occurrence, and the national media as well. It was embarrassing. It was a joke. It was, and after Deion beat Texas A&M in the post-game press conference, you would have thought that he just won the national championship.
It was Texas Tech, right?
They won Texas A&M.
A&M first game of the year.
They went down to A&M at Kyle Field and beat a team that the year before had this great.
Oh no, TCU.
Horned Frogs.
TCU, whatever. I see now.
One of those Texas places.
My bad. I'm wrong. TCU, but TCU had a bad year last year.
Yeah, they did. They did have a bad year.
So that game, in retrospect, was not that big of a win. Because TCU was not the same team the year before. It wasn't A&M. You're right. It was TCU, the Horned Frogs.
Yep.
But here's where I'm saying. I understand that Deion's got a huge ego. I'm okay with that. That's his personality. I'm fine with that.
And he backed it up with his career, at least in the NFL.
Yeah, he did. He did back it up, and I'm fine with all of that. But the way he treats the media and how condescending he is to the folks that he does not care for based on how they cover his team is immature. And by the way, I'm very happy that a lot of the national media figures have called him out this week. Paul Feinbaum killed him. Stephen A. Smith killed him. Many others are. Speaking of Stephen A. Smith, what a freaking embarrassment. If you're going to talk about the New York Yankees,
we go.
And talk about Aaron freaking Judge and how much he benefits because he's got Juan Soto batting behind him, and he goes on a rant about that. He just destroys his credibility when it comes to anything other than basketball.
No, Aaron Judge
was batted second the entire year. Okay, I mean, it was embarrassing.
And I don't even watch baseball, and I know Aaron Judge. I've seen a lot of top 10 Sports Center highlights, and he's on there weekly. So
yeah, but the point that Stephen A. Smith was that Aaron Judge benefits so much so because he's got Juan Soto batting behind him. No, Soto bats in front of him. I mean, it was embarrassing. A guy that wants to be paid $20 million a year, who is working, by the way, in New York City. Okay, he's not working in Alaska. He's working in New York City. You know what that tells me? It tells me he hasn't watched the New York Yankees play one game this year. Because if you watch the Yankees play one game, you would know that Judge bats behind Soto. Soto doesn't bat behind Judge and hasn't the whole year. That's freaking embarrassing.
Rhino, thoughts on Stephen A.?
I think Grant summed that up pretty well. I think here's what I'm going to say. Stephen A. is he's spread apart pretty thin. He's doing a little too much, in my opinion. Not going to take up for him, but
he has that podcast on YouTube now too.
If you're going to get paid $12 million a year and be the face of a network, you can't make a mistake like that.
No.
Can't do it.
That's a cowherd
And,
mistake.
and you can't make a mistake like you did about Shohei Ohtani and his interviews and everything else that went with that last year. You can't do that. All right. You just can't. You cannot call out a team, a foreign basketball team, and speak poorly about them and mispronounce everyone's names and go. I can go on and on. You can't do it. And he just gets a free pass. It's a joke. And listen, I like Stephen A. Smith. I know the guy personally. I've talked to him on a number of occasions. He was on my radio show before. But you can't do that. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing.
Yeah, that's like saying Alex Len he starts above Sabonis, and then Sabonis comes in and takes this. Yeah, I get you. It's your own city, and you're getting it wrong on national.
Yep.
media.
Yep.
All
Hey,
right.
Jay, appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks for kicking us off today.
Thank you.
Well done by Jay. That was a bad moment for Stephen A really bad moment. Speaking of very good moments, we had an amazing lunch yesterday at Bennett's in Roseville, 3 locations in all: Sacramento, Roseville, and Rockland in the Blue Oaks Town Center. Grant, Jerry, myself, Brian Knight, MLB umpire. Great time. You know what? I think I'm going to quit talking and I'm going to let the food speak for itself.
Serving the freshest handcrafted foods in a warm, convivial setting. Enjoy our weekend bubbles and brunch, an inflation-busting happy hour with handcrafted cocktails offered 7 days a week. Join us Mondays for a wine and dine deal, 2 entrees, 2 salads, and a bottle of wine. We offer a wine list with 60 selections by the glass, and they go great with our handcrafted desserts. As for craving, every day we feature our prime seafood and house-cut steaks. Come enjoy our hospitality. Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Eat well, stay well.
I'll be eating well tonight, Rhino. I'm going there for dinner.
Oh, good. You going to New York this time, Nick?
Yeah, you got that right.
Yeah,
I'm not going to New York. You're
man,
darn right. I'm going to New York.
Damn stupid question to ask. Hey, do us a favor. Get to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. You can make reservations. You can also buy gift cards, view all the specials and menus and more. Huge thanks to Bennett's for sponsoring today's show. We go from Jay to our college football guy. He's known as Corn Dog on this show, Napes. Corn Dog. Welcome in, buddy.
Oh, man. I have to agree like 2,000% on Dion, man. He is just very immature when it comes to the media. And I get it. You know, he was a fantastic play. No, I will never question his playing ability. You know, one of the all-time greats. But honestly, he runs a team almost like a high school team. His son plays quarterback. Best player goes both ways. You know, that sounds like a high school team. You know, anyone who's played high school knows you always have, you know, there's a best guy going both ways. And it's crazy.
I don't have anything to add. You're spot on.
Well done. So, Corn Dog, what games are you looking at tonight, buddy?
Not too many tonight. That they're not really big games tonight too much, but I'm gonna try and watch some U.S. Open.
Me too. I'm gonna watch some of the U.S. Open as well.
What's up with the matches starting so late?
That's the way they do because the nighttime match can't start. There's 2 matches on center court, and so if the first match goes the maximum number of sets, it pushes back the next match. I was at a match with Jimmy Connors one night, and we all walked out of the tennis center at 2:45 in the morning.
Whew.
Yeah.
That sounds like tennis.
Yeah. It was a 5-setter. I mean, it went over 4 hours.
Yeah. Tennis, you know, that's for the long haul, man. You know, you pretty much you're planning to be there like almost the whole day. It ain't basketball.
Well, there's a day session and a night session. So your ticket only goes for either the day session or the night session. Now, obviously, when you get to the weekend of the finals, that's different. There is only one session. But in this week, there's a day session and a night session. You don't get to go to both. I used to love going to the day session because you could go to all the outer courts, because the night session pretty much has matches in the stadium and in the grandstand and not on the outer courts. During the day, all the matches are going on in the outer courts. So there's a court called Court 16. So you have the stadium, then you have the grandstand, and then Court 16 is the closest to that. And that's where you also, I watched Jim Courier played Michael Chang before they got to be really good one day in the first round out at Flushing at the U.S. Tennis Center. And it was a phenomenal match. And I was sitting like 5 rows from the court, and it was amazing.
That's
so
awesome.
and then you can get up and you go to a different match. Then you can walk into the grandstand and you can go watch that match for a half hour. Then you can go into the stadium, and so you can do that during the first week. You can watch a variety of tennis. If let's say you're on court 16, and let's say it's a bad match, and all of a sudden, it's 2 sets to love, and then you get up and leave and go to a different match. So I used to love that.
So once it gets tighter and it gets closer to the finals of the tournament, do you have to be ticketed to be in Arthur Ashe Stadium?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So, all right, Corn Dog, appreciate it today, buddy.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna be looking forward all year for Deion Sanders quotes and stuff. That's definitely gonna be one of my highlights, especially anytime after they lose.
Absolutely. Yep.
Very good.
Tonight.
Oh boy.
Very well, could start tonight. So we will see. Corn Dog,
thank you, buddy.
Enjoy your Thursday night. Thanks for the call, brother.
Appreciate you.
I know we got to get you out pretty soon, but I do want to talk to you about this because we have both really enjoyed the Receivers show on Netflix. Quarterback was one of them as well. Well, we talked about last year, Napes, Domantas Sabonis being followed by cameras for Netflix. Well, Netflix has announced the release date for the starting 5.
Next up, the starting 5. Yesterday, Netflix announced a new project following last year's NBA season through the eyes of its biggest players. So here's the lineup. Got Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James, Domantas Sabonis, and Jason Tatum. According to a press release, the series captured all 5 athletes in their battles on and off the court as they chased greatness, pushed through injuries, and balanced the demands of family and legacy.
So October 9th, it comes out. What are you expecting to see with Domas behind the scenes?
I expect to see the same thing I saw on the quarterbacks with Kirk Cousins and the following all of the great players. And last year with Devontae Adams and Jefferson and Kittle and, Samuel, I thought it was fabulous. What do I expect? I've never heard a bad word about Domantas Sabonis. I've heard he's just great all the way across the board. So I think fans are going to love it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting season to chronicle him because it was the best of his career, right?
Yep.
And he had some slights with the All-Star game, but also the Kings, the ups and downs. And if you look at all 5 guys on the show, probably Domas might get the least amount of time compared to everybody else on that show, but they do a good job breaking it up.
Yep.
But it's cool that a Sacramento King is involved in that. And I know Sacramento's going to have their eyes peeled to
it's great.
See him. So
yeah, it's good publicity. Really I mean, it's good. It's very good for the city and the franchise. I think it's great.
No doubt. Well, Napes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, buddy.
On the Kings Court. This is amazing. I hope you have a wonderful trip to Nashville and Alabama, buddy.
You take care, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
All right. That is the one and only Mr. Napier, Grant Napier, joining us on the Kings Court. The owner, the principal of If You Don't Like That, my mentor, man, crazy. Still sitting here getting to do shows with Grant. So we are wide open, y'all. Great to have Grant in. Talk some NFL. By the way, go check out his NFC podcast. He predicts the NFC. In fact, he predicts his NFC winner. You're going to get some surprises in that one. We already gave up one here on the show with the 49ers. He thinks that the Rams are going to be atop the NFC West, but you got to go check that out. It is a very good listen. It'll give you chills. You start to hear a little bit of that football music. It's like, let's go, so want to get you guys in here. Bane saw on Twitter feed that Stephen A. Smith called the Kings his sleeper pick for the season. Finally made the big time. Yeah, well, Stephen A. Smith seems to jump around a lot, and based off what Grant said about his error with the Yankees and Aaron Judge, hopefully he meant the Sacramento Kings, not the Los Angeles Kings. Anyways, Adam was at the TCU game. Interesting. Yeah, that was a fun game to watch. That was really Travis Hunter's coming out party. If you didn't know about Travis Hunter before then, you definitely knew about him after that game. Too bad that hit that happened in the Colorado State game, that was a brutal hit. And actually it ended up having a very good ending between him and the linebacker for Colorado State coming together, which I thought was incredibly cool. Really, it showed sportsmanship on Travis Hunter's behalf. He did not have to do that. And remember, that was really volatile too. In fact, it was badly volatile after that hit. Social media was not a place that you wanted to be. Hey, BJ, I am so glad you're here. I got to share something with you here in a little bit. Glad you guys like the Bennett's promos. Yes, those aren't those good? We've got a brunch one too that looks absolutely amazing. Grant, Jerry, myself, we're out there with Brian Knight, the MLB umpire. We had an amazing lunch. The steak Cobb salad, you just can't go wrong with that. Like Grant said, he's going with the New York tonight. You got to get the New York strip. Let's see. Definitely bring more eyes to the Kings, at least hoping. So I talked about this a little bit last night. I talked actually at length about this last night with Domas. He's always been very good, excellent about keeping family and home and basketball separate. He is able to draw a line between the two. And I said last night, it's incredibly hard for somebody, I don't care if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, not to mix those two, right? It's really, really hard. Think about the NBA. Think about where you are a public figure. You are one of the most recognizable people in Sacramento. That definitely ups that. But the behind the scenes look with him, I think what is going to be most telling for a lot of people is his process. It's his process that he goes through. What he went through the year before in the offseason, Domas, guy was already a machine. Yes, he was coming off of the avulsion fracture on his finger, but you know, he was still looking, what can I do better? How can I improve myself? Took a food test and he realized that he had an allergy to to pastas or a very minor allergy. He cut pastas out and that changed a lot for him. And so he is always looking to make those little incremental adjustments. So I want to see what that's like behind the scenes. Who knows? We might get a little bit of extra access when it comes to some of the things we still have questions about with the Kings from last year. BJ, Rhino, got the cassette player. Yes, I do, my man. I need to find one for my gloss back in 97. So, BJ, I hit you with this last night, by the way, because you weren't here, but you know how long I've participated in that show, right? I have participated in that show for over, well, I've listened to the show for over 24 years, participated probably the last 10 to 15, but I got my first Sucktown, my man. He had never said Sucktown.
And Ryan in Sucktown.
And he hit me with Sucktown yesterday. And I'm like, oh, I've got to tell BJ that. Like, BJ, man, that's your thing. I Sucktown. It had always been Sacktown here. But, yeah, we might have to do something about that, BJ. Also, De'Aaron Fox, proud father, too. That's right. She just gave birth to their second child. So, De'Aaron, certainly a lot going on. De'Aaron is such a homebody, family man from everything that you see out there in the media, and obviously his wife Reese sitting half court most every single game. So what do you want to talk about? It is the Kings Court, the Thursday edition. Tomorrow we've got the Royal Rumble coming up. Get as many of you on as you would like. We can have up to 10. That's always fun. We'll have Adam. We'll do our wrestling weekly segment, see what's going on. We'll preview what is it, Adam? Clash in the Castle. Talk about that as well if you're a WWE guy. And then always the raging debate here in the court. Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, which way you going? Team Liv right here. I am Team Liv. Can't change my mind there. Bane, don't even try. Team Liv all day long. Football getting closer and closer. We talked at the top of the show about Brandon Aiyuk and the situation going on with the 49ers. If you missed it, I do want to replay this for you really quick, because I thought this was very, very telling. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan both spoke to the media yesterday, and it was a drastic contrast into their approaches. It was very drastic, the mood. You could tell they were beat down. In fact, listen to the start of Kyle Shanahan's press conference.
Believe that today would be different than previous weeks?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I've been working on the 53, the practice squad. I haven't talked to him. I know he's been cleared by our doctors. So I hope that he's out there practicing today.
Kyle, if he is going to practice today, what limitations do you want to put on him?
We'll just have him go through individual things like that. Start running routes with our quarterbacks. Probably won't let him go against.
And he just continues on. It's mumbly. It's down. It's dragging on. I don't want to answer these questions, but yet you're the head coach. You got to stand up and answer them. I get that you're frustrated that there's no resolution. Niner fans, I understand you're frustrated. Kyle continues.
Any sign that anything's close one way or the other in terms of a contract extension?
No.
No. Kyle is quickly getting into the hoodie territory. I mean, I almost cannot tell the difference between
most important
Bill Belichick and Kyle Shanahan.
A good, well-coached team that decisively. What does that say about just where your team is right now? Just how good it is right now?
I don't know.
I don't know. So I get it. Now, this is where it comes down to, and I go back to this. The Niners have not fined Brandon Ayuk up until this point because he has been a hold-in. Technically, the medical staff has had Brandon Ayuk out with a back injury. He was cleared, which means he is now eligible to be fined. Eligible to be fined up to $40,000 a day for unexcused absences from practice. I would keep an eye on 49ers camp later today, see what we learn. Brandon Ayuk, all reports have indicated he was not at practice today. So what's the resolution of this going to be? I believe this is going to, we've got to think, or at least I have to think, that a resolution is coming. We've said this so many times, and the goalpost continues to change, but you're getting too close to the season. Napes did a great job talking about it at the top. You're running out of time to get these guys ready. So the Niners, somebody is going to have to step up and put a foot down, whether it's Ayuk or whether it's the Niners. And that's going to come in the form of fines, or it's going to come in the form of Ayuk just shutting down and saying, I'm being traded. All talks for me coming back to San Francisco are out of the question. Now, Trent Williams, completely different situation, completely different. Now, he is also asking for more money. He is out of the guaranteed money. The guaranteed money in his deal is done, but he still has 2 or 3 years left on his contract, but he's 36 years old. So what are you going to do? Yes, if you're the Niners, you're going to find a way to rework things to bring Trent in, because this year, next year, that's your Super Bowl window. They are under the luxury of playing with Brock Purdy's contract. And that, by the way, is not going to be what it is this year come this time next year. It is going to be drastically different. Yeah, Adam, really, we're going to do some wrestling stuff. What do you want to talk about? Yeah, that's Cody Rhodes' line. Adam hopping back in. It's Rhea's world. Morgan's just lives in it. Come on, man. Come on. By the way, some other NBA headlines today. Steph Curry gets a 1-year $62.6 million extension from the Warriors. There you go. Jay was worried about if the Warriors were going to take care of Curry, kind of give him a chance to compete for a championship in his latter years, as the Warriors, by all means, look to kind of rebuild. There's going to be a new look. You're not going to have Klay Thompson anymore. Can they continue building their young guys? They had an excellent draft last year. Will that continue to bear fruit for them? And then Draymond Green, always the big question there as well. Tom Brady, we haven't talked about this very much, and I think it's really interesting. Tom Brady, y'all know, is getting ready to be the number one guy, the number one analyst for Fox NFL. He's going to be calling the games. Well, we also know that Tom Brady has been involved in negotiations to be a minority owner in the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, there's strict rules when it comes to if you have ownership in a team, you are not entitled the same access as any other analyst in the NFL. So this has been kicked around since 2023, but now it's coming to a head. There's reports that as this pens with Tom Brady and an ownership stake in the Oakland Raiders, that as an analyst this year, Fox's number one analyst, which I do not get. If you've noticed, Tom Brady has been at some of the preseason games, calling them separately, getting his reps in. I understand that. You got to get the guy ready. He's never spent a day in the booth. He's stepping off the field straight into the booth, which isn't too big of a jump for a lot of people. They just don't do it at this level that Tom Brady's doing it at. You know, they start out with college games. They start out with, you know, a lower level sporting events and move their way up. Tom Brady's going right to the big leagues and taking Greg Olson's spot. For me, Greg Olson is one of the best analysts in the NFL right now. In fact, I might even venture to say he is the best. And you can make the argument, Chris Collinsworth. You know, I used to love Phil Simms. Phil Simms, to me, brilliant. I miss Phil Simms in the booth for CBS. In fact, I will watch Giants preseason games if I can get the home feed, because he is a part of those broadcasts. I think he does an excellent job. But getting back to Brady, because of the pending minority ownership in the Raiders, Brady possibly is not going to be permitted to be in another team's facility. He cannot witness practices, and he cannot meet with the players and the coaches as part of the production meetings, which is a very routine part of any analyst's weekly routine leading up to a game. You ever notice when it's 2nd and 7 and there's a 3-yard run? Oh, I was talking to Coach Allen earlier this week about how they're going to run the gap run on the left side. Yeah, Brady not going to be a part of that, allegedly. So that is all in the news as well. You got the U.S. Open going in New York. Always a pleasure watching that. And great having Grant on earlier today here on the King's Court Live. Want to get to a few more of your guys' chats since we missed some of them. We were rapping with Jay a little bit earlier. BJ talking about the Kings. The Kings 6-game road trip. The end of the season could be a very crucial 6-game stretch. Yes, it could. Think about the stretch they had last year. Now, granted, last year's was a much harder East Coast stretch, in my opinion. But yeah, look, the Kings schedule, the way it lays out, they have got to come out of the gate and get it done. They absolutely have to have a very good start. They only have, I believe, 3 road games in December. And then as you get into the second half of the schedule, it really, really gets stiff. You look at their homestand. They've got a back-to-back with Boston and Oklahoma City. Now, they're both home games for the Kings. That's a tough back-to-back. Now, let's take a little step back from that. It's actually 3 games in 4 nights, including the Milwaukee Bucks. So you go Milwaukee, night off, and then you've got Boston and then OKC at home. That's hard. But getting back to what you're saying, BJ, not only is that 6-game stretch late in the season to the East Coast, when you come off of that 6-game stretch, you've got the Denver Nuggets waiting for you, and you're only getting 1 day of rest after a 6-game East Coast road trip. So yes, that could be a very crucial part of the Kings making. A lot of people have the Kings in the 6th seed right now. Don't disagree with it. ESPN Plus has the Kings in the 6th seed. I think the Kings will be over the 46.5 wins that DraftKings has put out for their over-under. Now, how much above that? Not sure yet. I want to say, we'll get to that closer to the season. We need a little bit more time for things to digest. If you missed it earlier in the week, Jerry Reynolds joined us here on If You Don't Like That. We did Jerry Reynolds Tuesday, actually, on If You Don't Like That. We did open forum, and Jerry was thinking that there might be a little something more there with Orlando Robinson. Remember, Orlando Robinson is the big that the Kings picked up from Miami and Miami's G League team. Now, his numbers in the G League were really solid. Now, granted, not a huge sample size, just about a season, but he was averaging 24 points, over 24 points, and over 11 rebounds a game. And I believe, I want to say over half of those rebounds were offensive. So he's put some good work on tape. And the question became, well, if Miami let him walk, is there something wrong there? But Jerry did not think so. Jerry thought that because Khalil Ware has played so well in the preseason for Miami, he thinks that that could be part of the decision. So could the Kings get a little extra bang for their buck there? We will see in training camp. Just around the corner. This is the quiet time of the calendar for NBA execs. For a lot of the players, they're wrapping up camps and such. But before you know it, we're going to have media day, training camp. We're going to have preseason, and October 24th will hit. It's going to be the Kings and the Timberwolves. By the way, speaking of the Kings in the end of the season, that last 3-game stretch, all 3 games against Western Conference opponents to end the season. But I'm going to give you a little solace here. I've talked about this on the Kings Court prior to this, but strength of schedule. I get that everybody or most teams play 41 at home and 41 on the road. But as Jerry pointed out, up until last season, most teams did that because the Lakers' road games against the Clippers were actually home games. Great point by Jerry. But getting back to my point, you look at the NBA strength of schedule this year, 3 of the 5 teams that are that have the top 5 hardest schedules this season are in the Pacific Division. The only 2 teams in the Pacific Division that are not included in that top 5 of the hardest schedules are the Kings and the Lakers. So that should make you feel pretty good. In fact, the top 5 looks like this: Oklahoma City, number 5. Then you've got Golden State, number 4. Golden State was number 1 last year. 17 back-to-backs on their schedule. The Kings have 16 back-to-backs this year. They've got the Mavs, number 3, third hardest strength of schedule. Then the Clippers at number 2, and number 1, the Phoenix Suns. So a lot of the Pacific Division teams are included in there. And so that's what makes it interesting to me when you look at the lines for the conference. So if you look at the Western Conference lines for the future bets, the Kings are at plus 2,200. Plus 2,200 to win the Western Conference. Only teams better than the Kings: Memphis, plus 1,800. That could be a really, really solid play, depending on how Memphis comes out, because Ja Morant, he's got fresh legs. Now, is it going to be a benefit or is it going to be a curse? And then also Zach Edey. What kind of impact is he going to have on that team? Then you've got Phoenix, which I completely disagree with. They've got Phoenix at plus 1,400. To me, I don't see it. We can talk about that later. Another one, completely disagree with. The Lakers, plus 1,400. So that's already 2 teams I am scratching off the list. I think the Kings have better odds than both of those teams. Then you've got the Timberwolves plus 400. The Nuggets, plus 400. That one is also debatable because of how much they lost off the bench. And then also, Jamal Murray, when he and Jokic are not on the floor together, Denver tends to have a little of a slide. Maybe it's 3 games, 4 games. We've seen it the last couple seasons. Jamal Murray always goes through, usually, at least I would say 15 games that he misses from injury. Then you've got the Dallas Mavericks plus 400 debatable there too. Dallas looked really good at the end of the year. Can they continue that momentum? And then Oklahoma City is your favorite at plus 320. Those are all ever changing. But yes, the Kings, that end of the season stretch, going to be really difficult. So anyways, we are having a fun day here on the Kings Court. Tomorrow, by the way, we are going to be doing the Royal Rumble. Can't wait for that. That'll be a lot of fun. And then Adam will be here for the wrestling segment. And then there will be no Kings Courts all next week because I will be out of town. But doesn't mean that I'm not going to try to get some audio up for everybody. And so make sure you pay attention to both if you don't like that. And then also pay attention to our different podcast platforms. Make sure you go listen to Grant on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can go to grantnapier.com. Then you can find the King's Court on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Justin Jefferson contract changed the wide receiver value. Brandon is not the same level as JJ. Yeah, we hit on that a little bit earlier. I don't think he is. And Jay, who was on with us, he asked me why. Yes, you have to give a guy an opportunity. You can't judge them before they've had the opportunity. But looking at Brandon's, looking at his body of work, I just don't see the number one receiver trait in the separation off the line. I don't see the size that you typically see with the bona fide number one receivers. Look at CeeDee Lamb. Look at Jamar Chase. Look at JJ. Look at Devontae. What do they all have in common? They're long. And I'm not saying a smaller guy can't be a number one receiver, but that is usually a trait that those guys have. But Brandon, and nothing against him, he is an amazing talent. He led the NFL last year in explosive plays. I just don't think it's fair that I don't think he demands the pay that these other guys are getting. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't demand good money. He does, but not CeeDee Lamb money, not $38 million signing bonus money. No, I don't see it. And remember, Brock Purdy, he still has to get paid. And we're not even still talking about Trent Williams, who we hit on at the top of the show. So the Niners really are stumbling in to the season this year. And I'll play it again. Larry Krueger hit the nail on the head. He really did. Here's Larry Krueger coming off of yesterday's press conferences after attending both Kyle Shanahan's and John Lynch's.
To talk to Lynch, who looks really tired, and Shanahan does as well. Both these guys are totally worn out by all these holdouts and the short off season and losing the Super Bowl. And they look like it's mid-season and it's the beginning of the season.
That's not a good thing. Larry is with this football team day in and day out. And by the way, if you want some great Niners coverage, go check out Larry Krueger's channel. Also, go check out Damon Bruce's channel. Both have been here on If You Don't Like That. They are friends of the show, but they do an incredible job covering the Niners. So go check them out if you want some more coverage on them, a little bit more in depth. But you don't want to be coming into the season limping in. That is not how a team should be starting the season. Look at a team, and I know it's the bona fide Hard Knocks rub, but look at a team like the Bears. And I'm using the Bears because we have gotten a glimpse inside the Bears when it comes to their preparations for the season. But you look at the excitement there. You look at the freshness. You see everything building to a crescendo, right? That doesn't seem to be the case for the Niners. It looks like the Niners are on their 12th rep on the bench press, and they're just barely trying to get it up, almost needing a spot. That's how they're coming into the season, as opposed to getting ready to peak. And that's a problem. So you hear that from Larry. There is something behind it. Steve Smith was a very good number one receiver. You could argue also Chad Johnson You could argue Chad Johnson. Now, what I would say is Steve Smith did not do it at the level as some of these other guys have done it. He was an incredible talent. You could almost make that same argument for Hines Ward, couldn't you? Now, Chad Johnson, he was definitely a number one. Chad Johnson made the other receivers around him better by just being on the field because of the attention that you had to give him. Mark, why does the NFL have a cap still? It's a multi-billion-dollar business to keep it competitive, Mark. Look at MLB. And I guess there is still parity in MLB, but the best franchises get the best players. Shohei Ohtani, Dodgers. Aaron Judge, Yankees. When you see an incredible talent in baseball that's on a smaller contract, that's in a smaller market, they get basically earmarked for the Yankees, for the Dodgers. Eventually they're going to end up in one of those big cities, big franchises, because the smaller franchises don't have the money to pay them. And in fact, if we want to relate it to here in Sacramento really quick, that's the reason Grant thinks baseball cannot work, Major League Baseball in Sacramento. You don't have the corporate money here. You don't have the corporate sponsorship. So if you get Major League Baseball, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't want to speak for Grant here, but you could find yourself in that spot where you're not able to get the best players and pay the best players. And maybe your program, your ball club, not as good as a lot of the others in the NFL. Niners Super Bowl window closing when these players are pricing themselves out of San Francisco. It's hard for me to understand, Flores. It's really hard, and I get everybody's mindset's different. If Jay was here right now, Jay would say, I'm going where the most money's at. That's most times when we have these conversations, Jay is about the money. Who's going to pay me the most, right? Why would they give up money? He enjoys the business of sports. Totally understand that and respect that. But look at what a Jalen Brunson did. Takes $100 million pay cut to make his team better. Now, in Brandon Ayuk's case, nobody's asking him to take that drastic of a cut, but I'll never understand why you wouldn't look at the big picture as opposed to why not look at the whole pie instead of just one piece of pie? If you're a member and one of the star members of a Super Bowl team in a big market, there are a lot of other opportunities for you off the field, not just while you're playing, but many times for the rest of your life. Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, maybe they're not great examples because they are legends. They're Hall of Famers, but we see ads for them every single year, whether it's Skechers, whether it's Doritos. But getting back to Brandon Ayuk, take a little bit less. Be with a great team. The money opportunities will be there. And it's not a significant amount less. And not only that, Brandon Ayuk, he's a local kid, y'all. He's from Rockland. His mom has been a lifelong 49ers fan. Brandon Ayuk says he wants to be in San Francisco. It's who he wanted to play for. So I just, if you're playing with, and also, when does quality of life mean anything anymore? Like, what is that good for these days? Because I would think the quality of life playing with guys that I've played with for 3-4 years, stars, guys at the top of their game, greats in this game as we sit today, that probably indirectly push me harder, push me to be a better player in practice. I'm probably picking things up off of them. I'm probably picking things up that I don't even realize that I'm picking up. I'm having fun doing what I'm doing for a living. They always say do something to where you're never working a day in your life. I've got to think it would be a hell of a lot more fun playing for a team that's winning and playing for a team that's relevant than getting an extra couple $1,000,000 to play for a worse team. I can't put myself in those shoes because I've never been in those shoes. Never had to turn down $28 million or $2 extra million for a better opportunity. Never had to do it. But I don't get it. Like, at what point do you not look at the bigger picture? And that's where I am struggling with the Brandon Ayuk situation. But that is his decision. I'm struggling because it's my take on it. I'm trying to understand it. It is his decision. I won't judge him one way or the other. It is his business decision. BA is a great route runner. He has problems with press coverage. Bingo. Great point, El Cap. I was trying to say that earlier. I'm so glad you brought that up. Because when you're the bona fide number one, you're going to be the guy that's getting the press coverage. And he does have problems with that. Debo, Kittle, these guys open. It works all these ways. I don't want to say that it's exclusive to Brandon Ayuk. There's things that Brandon Ayuk does that opens up the other guys. Just like I'm saying, there's things Debo does, McCaffrey does, Kittle does, Purdy does that opens up Ayuk. But it's part of a bigger picture. They all work together. That's true, Adam. Smith was an abnormality, yes. What's up, Patrick? Grant is gone for the day. He was here just a little bit ago. It was a really, really fun time with BJ. Let's see. El Cap hopping back in. Having generational money is good enough. Plus, they are playing a game too. Yeah, okay. I don't. So I have never played a day in the NFL. Never played a day in the NBA. I've been fortunate enough to be around NBA teams. I've been fortunate enough to be around professional football teams growing up. It's not just a game. When fans say it's a game, like how can it's a game? They're just playing a game. When you make it to that level, the game is just part of it. It's a business. There's a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot of what's the right word? There's a lot more than playing the game that goes into it. So there are a ton of stressors that a lot of us cannot relate to because we've never been in those shoes. So it is a little bit more complicated than that. But yes, I get what you're saying. They're getting to play a game. I understand what you're getting at. Pride and ego is the downfall of our society right now. Yeah, in theory, he isn't taking less. He is actually doubling his salary. Good point, Mark. Good point, Mark. He is doubling his salary, but he thinks it's evaluations, right? If I've got a car that I have taken immaculate care of, I've babied it, I've made sure oil changes are done right on the dot, I polish it every Sunday, scrub the rims with a toothbrush. That doesn't guarantee me extra money. If the Blue Book value says the Blue Book value, my attachment to that car does not mean it's worth more money. And I guess it's not the best example, but what I'm saying is it's very subjective. These guys think, they look at these markets and they think that, okay, this guy's getting paid this much, and they value themselves one way, and they think that they're in that ballpark. I mean, the best example, Deshaun Watson. you got to throw that contract out the window. That's an outlier. In fact, that contract was restructured today to help the Browns. But yes, you're right, Mark. He would be doubling his salary, but he thinks he is worth more. Playing on a winning team. I'm with you, dude. I'm with you, El Cap. It is a interesting conversation to have. Definitely. Yes, professional sports is different. Yes, it would still be enjoyable to play. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. Can you imagine running out there? I mean, if you're Brandon Ayuk, it's your hometown team, basically. From Rockland. It's the Niners. The Niners used to have training camp in Rockland, for heaven's sakes. So it's like walking away from your... Like, what would it take, all of you? Seriously, let me ask this. All of you are in the NBA. All of you have grown up in Sacramento. All of you get drafted by the Sacramento Kings. And I mean this. Like, try to look at this and take it with a grain of salt. Like, are you walking away from the Kings? Let's imagine the Kings are right on the edge of a championship like the Niners. Would you be walking away from that for an extra $3 million? I'm not. But that's just me. It's an interesting conversation, James. It's always money first. It's never the ring. The money takes care of your future, and the ring doesn't. I slightly disagree, James, because when you have that ring opens new doors for you, James, financially. You are always a Super Bowl champion. If you are a stand-up person, if you're somebody that stayed out of trouble, you were a good player, and you're a Super Bowl champion for that city, there's probably most times, now, might not be a huge opportunity, but there's probably always going to be opportunities for you. Whether it's signings, whether it's appearances, whether it's doing a local radio show, there's going to be opportunities. So I get what you're saying. The money talks, but, and here's the other thing we have to remember too. The money, we're talking about 28 million, right? 28 million bucks. Chop off 40% for taxes. And remember, the way that these taxes work for pro athletes, I think a lot of people don't realize this, but when you are playing in a different state, when the Niners are playing, the Seahawks, you're working in Washington. So you are taxed for that day in Washington. So the taxes are really goofy. So that's why I said chop off 40% right off the top. Chop off another 5% for your agent and probably your attorney. So if Brandon Ayuk signed for $28 million guaranteed, he is probably going to see 13.5 million out of that. That's still a lot of money. But yes, Adam, be a king for life. There you go. Yes, that ring matters if you're a top player, but when you're a backup, a no-name, that ring means nothing down the line. But that's okay. But we're talking about top players. That's what I'm saying, James. Yeah, you could go to the Vegas pawn shop that's part of Pawn Stars and probably find Super Bowl rings there. That guys in those situations have pawns. But, even if you're somebody that's making the veteran minimum, if you're somebody on a practice squad, we are still talking about a lot of money. Now, you're not going to be living the life of CeeDee Lamb. You're not going to be living the life of De'Aaron Fox financially, but you're still making well into the 6 digits. I mean, Brock Purdy, that's what he's making in his contract. Now, he's making a ton more in endorsements after that, but Purdy's a bad example because he is about to get paid big time. Mark, especially with Ayuk's mom being a 49er fan. Yep. Chase the money while young, get the ring as a role player. I don't know. See, that's why I posted it to all of you. It's different for everybody, right? BJ, I'd stay as a king only if they apologize to Napier. Back paid him and made him the highest paid announcer. I can't disagree with that. Great answer, BJ. I'm sure Grant appreciates that as well. Probably the apology part. I'm guessing that would mean the most to Grant. But you're right. I just brought that up. You do see guys sell their rings. There's sad stories about that. Hell, it seems like almost every, and granted, this is a bad example because there's no WWE Hall of Fame, but go online. You could probably find somebody's WWE Hall of Fame ring. They end up on the market more times than not. So anyways, it's been a fun show today. Thank you guys for joining us here on the King's Court. It was great having Grant on the show. A lot of fun. Love it. Incredibly humbled to still have him and still be partnering with him and be on this network. And all of you, just the best. Literally the best. And remember, make sure, and I'll remind you tomorrow, but I'm going to be off next week. But do not forget about Bennett's. You got to get down there. I showed you the dinner. We are brought to you, by the way, today by Bennett's Restaurants, 3 locations in all Sacramento, Roseville, Rockland. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. I showed you the dinner side of things. I always talk about the brunch too. Can't forget about it.
The biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew.
How good does that look? Bottle of champagne, 2 entrees, $49. Hard to beat there. Hard to beat. All right, y'all. We are going to get out. We'll be back tomorrow. King's Court. And wrapping up the week. It's a getaway edition of the King's Court. We'll have Adam doing the wrestling segment. We'll do our Royal Rumble. We'll be hitting all the top news. We'll talk Kings. Also, any updates on the Niners, Brandon Ayuk, we'll be hitting those as well. College football tonight, I'm predicting it. North Dakota State beats Colorado. I mark my words. Going with the upset. I think Colorado's coming in a little too cocky. Travis Hunter has a big game, though. In fact, I believe college football has already started right now. Rutgers playing. So get your fill of early week 1 college football action. We will be back tomorrow. Make sure you go. If you haven't already, subscribe to If You Don't Like That. We would greatly appreciate it. Our entire library, including pregame, postgame, halftime shows for the Kings. Every single Kings game, 82 a year, are up there, including play-in and playoffs. Also, specials with Jerry Reynolds. You've got Sean Salisbury from last season on there. And then great one-on-ones, Grant, Iron Eagle, Grant, Scott Pollard. Go check those out if you haven't already. And remember, you can get all of the If You Don't Like That audio at grantnapier.com. Take it with you on the go. Also, you can download it via Apple and Spotify podcasts, and that goes the same for the King's Court. You can download all of the King's Courts. So everything on If You Don't Like That, except the audio from here on the King's Court, goes to If You Don't Like That. King's Court goes to Apple and Spotify on its own. Go download those at your leisure if you miss an episode. And also, not only is it live shows, you're going to get your morning shoot-arounds back ASAP. Those are going to resume. Promise you this time. I'm feeling better now. I'm at a spot where I can talk longer than an hour and a half a day now that the pneumonia is pretty much cleared up. Still a little sore, not going to lie. But your morning shoot-around's going to be coming back after I get back from vacation next week. So those are exclusive to the audio platform. Make sure you download those as well. But again, we will be back tomorrow. Thank you all. Huge thanks to Grant for joining us today here on the King's Court. A lot of fun. Getaway Friday tomorrow, Royal Rumble Friday. Enjoy your college football tonight. Looking forward to being back with you tomorrow to wrap up the week. Adam again will be here with our wrestling segment. Hit me, Todora.
Holy moly, Jim Bowley.
Go Kings, light the damn beam. Court is dismissed.